everybody. Welcome to another episode of All Things Considered Franchising, powered by Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com. I am your host, Scotty Milas. All Things Considered Franchising is a podcast dedicated to the entrepreneur, someone who is seeking and researching opportunities, business ownership, wants to explore franchising. All Things Considered Franchising has information about how to research, where to research, people to talk to, and things you should be thinking about when investigating and researching an opportunity. Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com. I am the president and founder of the consulting organization that helps people build that roadmap and then introduce them to brands that fit. I have a guy that I've known for a lot of years right now, and I have to say, I was kind of scratching my head that it's been 5 years, I guess 4 years since he started or been part of the Rep'em group. And it seems a lot longer than that, especially where the Rep'em group is. And my guest, Cary, if you ever wanted to just sit at a bar and order some hot wings and drink a couple of beers and shoot the breeze about business ownership, being an entrepreneur, this is the guy you probably want to have in that next to you on that bar stool. Cary, welcome to the show.
That's quite the introduction. I like
yeah,
it.
It's good to have you. You and I have rubbed elbows and and chit-chatted and just kind of talked about everything in regards to business ownership, franchising, and being a VP at the Rep'em Group. And the Rep'em Group is an FSO with a unique twist to it. You build them, you manage them, you find the real estate, you get them up and running, and they become successful. And it's unique in the FSO market because a lot of FSOs spend most of their time trying to sell the franchises and really don't give a hoot whether they get opened or not. Rep'em takes a different approach, and I think it's the right approach and the right way to do it. So, and you're involved with Alloy Personal Training, Splash and Dash, Forever Young, Aging Solutions. So you got Kinetics. There's just a list of brands. So tell us a little bit about how this journey started for you, because every time I see you, I think you're still 21, and realize you're too young to be a business owner and have all your experiences being a franchisee, a franchisor. So tell us about franchising, how you got into this, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, no, wow. So yeah, maybe 21 plus 20. The good genes of hair from my father may betray me, but no, geez, franchising, I started in officially 14 years ago. I had been working at Fidelity Investments in 2008 and 2009. So if you recall what happened in the fall of 2008, you can understand why I didn't make it in 2009. And I had an opportunity arise to go work with a butcher shop franchisor out of the state of New Hampshire. Ironically, I had been their first customer ever, and they were always like, hey, if you ever want to come work with us, just let us know. And I fell into a place where it was about time to reach out and say, hey guys, I need a job. And that turned into come hang out with us for a couple hours. We had a whole conversation about entrepreneurship and franchising and business development and business ownership. And they said, hey, you're going to come be a director of biz dev over here for us. And that lasted 6 months until like, hey, you're gonna be in charge of the marketing department now. And that lasted another 5 years. And so it was a really, really great experience to be working with an emerging franchisor at a very, very young age. Unfortunately ran out of money and then wasn't with that franchisor and moved myself and my family to New York. Ended up working at Boar's Head, the deli meat company. Not exactly a franchise, but they have distributorships, similar relationship. And while I was there, just had an opportunity to research a ton of real estate opportunities, maybe a little bit of Bitcoin, and then mostly franchises, right? And
interesting.
Brought me back to my roots of what I really love, which is entrepreneurship and with guardrails, of course. And I ended up buying into a franchise, bought into a fitness concept, and was doing that, and had an opportunity back in 2019 to join the Rep'em Group. And I mean, what
an organization.
The company wasn't even called the Rep'em Group. It was another guy and me. And it's like, here's a fitness brand and go see what you can do. And we start running for about 4 or 5 months, then boom, COVID hits and everything skids to a halt for another 4 or 5 months. And it gives us a real opportunity to sit back and evaluate the business and our plan of going to market. And prep for launch. So coming out of 2020, we hit it pretty strong with, Repham's really recognized for elemental services, right? That was one of the first brands that really took off for us, and had a great year and a half, ride with that. It's still going, and now we're up to 13 brands and adding them as we go. So it's been a lot of fun.
One of the things, and you touched on this, one of the things that it amazes me about the franchising space, whether you're a franchisee, a franchisor, FSO, whatever is that the industry seems to constantly remain strong, even when things start to go a little left or right with what's going on in the world, whether it's the economy, there's certain things happening. It remains a constant source and opportunity for a lot of people to get into business. And, I remember when the pandemic hit, and I'm sure you do too, that, everybody was talking, oh my gosh, we got to get our disaster plan in place. We got to, we got to lock, we got to make cuts. We got to do this. But, a lot of companies, especially yours, the Repham Group, franchisees, franchisors grew during this time. I know my business, quadrupled as far as inquiries and people investing. What is it about franchising that it stays strong during those times? I mean, what do you think it is? I mean, it's interesting.
I mean, you told me we only have like 12 to 13 minutes. I mentioned I worked at Fidelity Investments, so I know what a 401k is, right? But so it's a great question, but I think an answer that would make sense, or that will resonate, is, for a lot of people, they come out of college, they go get a job because that's what they're programmed to do, and they end up falling that job for 10, 15, 20 years. And they don't really think twice about it. And those jobs are fragile. And in situations like COVID or economic crunch times, those jobs can go away very quickly. And when you start to, and these are a lot of the candidates we talk to, right, who've had these corporate jobs, and they just, I don't want to say
right,
it way, but for lack of knowledge, they just don't know any better. And in the back of their minds, there's a lot of people who have always wanted to be their own boss, right? They've always wanted to own their own business. Whether it's small, whether it's big, they've just wanted to be in control of their own opportunity. And franchising is a great way to do that. I used the term earlier, guardrails, right? I always used to joke around. It's like when you were bowling as a kid and they had those inflatable
right
that you wouldn't miss, right? It's what franchising does, is it condenses timelines of success and gives systems and processes that otherwise would have taken multiple years to develop for, mom and pop single owned location, right? And we can that scale to the tune of thousands and thousands of units opening.
With a number of brands in your portfolio, and I know, you work with consultants like myself who present, potential candidates to yourself, potential franchisees. But with 13 brands in your portfolio, what are some of the things that you look for in a candidate to line up the right person with the right brand? I mean, a lot of people say, there's this old saying that you don't need industry experience to own a franchise, but there are certain, things that you got to have for a certain brand. So what is it that you look for at Repham to line up people within a brand? Because you may get a call from somebody that says, hey, I'm interested in Eli, but you're saying, hey, you know what? Eli's really not the way you should go. Maybe you should go with Alloy, Splash, and certain things. So what do you look for? How do you maneuver that?
Well, so we have very different brands, right? All 13 of our brands are kind of different sectors. Some of them are service based, some of them are retail, some of them are, they require different things. So we can't just put everybody into just one box. But typically, outside of somebody coming in who's well-funded, who shows up on time, right, and knows that this is something to do, we're just kind of having conversations with them and extrapolating from them what they're looking at, why they're looking at it, and what that is ultimately going to mean for them once they own that business. You mentioned something about the industry, right? Because when you sign a franchise agreement, you're in that industry for 10 years. So I always ask the candidates that I'm working with, if you sign this franchise agreement, or when you do this, you're going to be in this business for 10 years, a decade. Are you sure you want to be tied to the fitness space for a decade? Are you sure you want to be tied to the health and wellness space, the kids space for a decade? And as long as they can confidently answer yes to that, we usually feel pretty good about it. All right.
Right, and I think it's safe to say that, you know, when you said this earlier, whether it's 1 or 3 or 5, you know, kind of that single, you know, the entrepreneur, somebody who is really getting into franchising, really should be considering the scalability of franchising. It's you know, you don't build a legacy on one, and you don't build wealth on one. I mean, again, there are people that are comfortable with just one. They just like that, you know, security, I guess. They're not looking to build anything. But if somebody really wants to scale, that's where your legacy and your wealth is going to come from, correct?
Correct. And I think that, building that on what a franchise is, it's a collection of systems and processes that somebody else has put in place for it. Right. And
Right.
so into those. And I'm not saying that anybody who comes over to us and says, hey, I'm looking at a franchise, couldn't go out and develop their own systems and processes, but certainly a lot easier to go pick up a hamburger at McDonald's than it is to make one on your grill out back, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean but you know, that's why in franchising you have what's called the engineering entrepreneur, the person who really doesn't fit into franchising because they want to develop all the systems. They want to get up in the morning and put soup on the menu, or they want to add a new piece of equipment in the gym without, you know, having to ask anybody or seeing if it really works because they just saw something on, you know, YouTube or Facebook. You know, the process entrepreneur is somebody who can really focus in on managing the day-to-day business or hiring the person to run the business, delegate and scale and grow as large as they want and stop when they're done.
And each one of those factors plays into the conversations that we have. And then you called it out. Great consultants like yourself are helping people understand what their course is, right? And as long as they understand how that path is going to look, it helps everybody along the way, right?
You know, you and I, you know, we talk to people every day, and I think, you know, I think we get surprised at some of the questions that we get asked. I mean, you know, we could probably, I'm waiting for the day, and I wish I was a better writer because I'd love to put a book together on, you know, questions you shouldn't be asking when you're investigating business ownership, even if it's just an independent that you're looking to buy. But we get them, and you know, one of the things of the misnomer about franchising is that you're making an investment into a business, and the franchisor is going to do everything for you. I mean, we talk about the systems and the best practices and the operations manual, but there is a level of effort on the franchisee's part, you know, to go out and find customers, network. Do you have that sales aptitude? Do you want retail people coming to you? I mean, share your thoughts on that, because there is this misnomer that, you know, I just sit back and put my hands up and, you know, I'm going to become a millionaire.
That's what I was saying. We got franchises available. Anybody wants to do no, I think I mean that's a great point. And when I first bought into a franchise, and I was, call it 5-6 years ago, my plan was to put as much effort into a regular job as into a franchise and to scale it up, right? And I think that that's a really, really good approach for somebody early on. Not necessarily realistic. There are a lot of investors out there who are looking for what I call semi-absentee. I don't go as far as absentee, but the semi-absentee is something that does prove out. But you still got to put in, your time, effort, and energy. And what that can look like is, I would call it a little bit of a sliding scale heading down, where you launch the business, you're going to be excited, you want to lean in and really make sure that everything's getting checked off as you go through the standard operating process of opening. And then you want to get your people in place and get them situated. And at that point, you can generally scale back and get down to maybe 10, 15 hours a week. But at that point, it is a part of your life, right? This is something that is going to say, oh, I own that and somebody else is running it for me. The majority of people are now going to be involved with this. And that's where I was explaining before with that 10-year basis. Like, if you're going to go out and buy an Alloy personal training, sure. Could you be there 10 hours a week, maybe working out 3 hours a week and hanging out for a little bit of time on the front and the end to chat with your staff? Absolutely. But are you taking your hands off of that steering wheel while you're driving the thing? Absolutely not.
Yeah, yeah, it's like flying a 747, I mean, it's the exciting part is all the passengers getting on the plane and taxiing to the runway, taking off, getting it up to the altitude. But, once you get up to 37,000 square feet, 30,000 feet, you still got to fly the plane. I mean, yeah, granted, you may be on autopilot, but, you're not playing poker or cards. At least you hope not, but at least you're a
And
passenger.
listen,
So,
to keep with the plane analogy, one of the benefits of using a development office like us is that we've done a ton of the research ahead of time. We've done the due diligence and made sure that the brand is good, right? In effect, the plane was built on the ground before we took it off, so you're not getting onto a plane that's slapping on panels midair.
yeah, we're talking to Cary Tober, who's VP franchise development over at the Repham Group, an FSO that handles 13 different brands in different categories. I'm Scotty Milas, the host of All Things Considered Franchising. You recently dabbled into some new categories. Categories that I happen to be very fond of. I love the pet industry. I just think the pet industry is a need, not a want. What is it? 2 out of 3 households now have not only one pet, but 2 pets, I
Yep.
think, or statistics like that. But um, tell us a little bit about some of the new brands that you brought in, this new category. It's exciting. Like I said, I love it. You got to be a pet lover to be in it. I mean, I'll be frank with our listening audiences. If you don't like dogs, then or cats or any kind of pet, I wouldn't recommend being in it. But tell us a little bit about these new opportunities that you got on the table now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you nailed it. I mean, when I was given an opportunity to work in the pet space last summer, I was like, I haven't had a pet in a couple of years, and like, listen, just get in there and check it out. And identified very, very quickly, yes, there were a ton of households that had animals prior to the pandemic, but then during COVID, I mean, 1 out of 5 households added a dog, right? It was
Yep.
23 million dogs that were added to our society. It's an astronomical number. And then as a result of that, spending all this time at home, people are really budding up and treating their pets and their dogs like kids. And the relationship just shifted, right? In the last 3 years to these animals sleep in our beds, they sit on the couch, they're probably getting treated better than the other people. And like we want to take care of them because they do elicit pride, they do just elicit joy and love from us. And you wouldn't let your kid walk around all dirty, you wouldn't let yourself walk around all dirty. So there became a real big need for services that take care of dogs in particular. And so what we have with Splash and Dash for dogs is a full service groomery. But they've really taken an approach where how do we maximize what's happening within the hours of the day? So with safety forward, I mean, everything in that facility is built on making sure that the pet is 100% taken care of and safe, just like you would feel good about dropping your kid off at a daycare. But we've engineered it to be able to move about 60 to 80 dogs per day through the facility and get them cleaned and or groomed. And the way that the brand owner has done that is by taking what I would call like a quick serve, fast casual approach, where you break down the roles into individual categories. And when the dog goes out back, they're met by somebody who's gonna either prep them, meaning they're gonna clean their eyes, their ears, their nose, their
Yep.
nails. Then they go to a bathing station, and there's one person who's specifically responsible for bathing the animals. And then if they need a groom, they'll actually go to the groomer. And the concept of this is that only the highest valued or the highest required skill sets touch the animals when they need to. So if the
Interesting.
groomer is the highest paid person on staff, you don't want that person cutting toenails or washing the dog, right? That's something that a lower paid member of your staff can handle. But the groomer is the only one who's doing things like scissor work, right? So you're not going to give a person who's untrained a scissor to go clip around a dog's ear. We want somebody who knows what they're doing to touch that.
Yeah,
And
it's
that,
kind of that, you mentioned fast casual, but it's kind of that subway mentality, that station, your first person that you're talking to is the person who really likes to talk to people. Hey, welcome to Subway. What can I get you? And then, as you inch into the line, it's less and less conversation. But when you get at the end of the line, again, that person at the register is the person, hey, thanks for coming. I mean, that's the way it should be. But it's a great idea. I mean, I think that it's alarming, and it's a great category, the pet industry. I mean,
yeah,
it's
we've had a lot of success with that one. And you made a comment earlier about multi-units and a lot of people coming in and wanting to buy, more empires. And this is a brand that for whatever reason, I've had a number of 10 packs come through, like people who are just like, we want markets, right? Technology that our founder, Dan Barton, has crafted and put in place for Splash and Dash, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's literally using AI to assign which employees need to go to which tasks at what time. And so he's looking at pulling seconds out of the day to drive efficiencies, all while keeping the safety of that animal in mind.
Great, great. Um, Believe it or not, we're running out of time here, but any words of wisdom for individuals listening, our listening audience that are hesitating to pick up the phone to talk or learn more about business ownership? I mean, maybe some words of wisdom to get people past that, or franchising is what people look at franchising and say it's not independent. You're not a business owner. You're part of a major corporation. I disagree. You are an independent business owner. You own the business. You can own the real estate if you want somewhere down the road. And of course, you could sell your business or sell your stores later on down, as your contract winds down or renew it. So any words of wisdom to get people, just to kind of get that initial call going?
Yeah, I wish you prepped me for this one, Scotty. I got a million different. I mean, I would say, listen, like, take the leap, right? I have this line that I love, which is the answer is always no unless you ask, right? And if you're not actively going out there and pushing boundaries and trying something, you're never going to know what it's like on the other side. And as you're saying it, I'm thinking to myself, like, maybe the Forbes list of billionaires is a little out there, but like,
Right.
I don't think there's anybody on the list of billionaires who has a job, right? I think they own their own businesses or they own real estate or they've inherited it. All right. Those are the lucky ones. But the people who really want that ownership and they want to understand what type of tax benefits they get and what type of freedom they get and what they can do within the confines of that business ownership. And then, the other piece of that is the most important, which is again, the pride of ownership and what you get by impacting your community. I don't know that that's something that you're having in a traditional corporate lifestyle.
Right, right. Yeah, I always use the phrase complacent optimist. It's the person
Yeah.
who's sitting back waiting for the boss to walk in the door and saying, "Hey, we're going to give you a raise," or "Hey, are you interested in a promotion?" Instead of being, that more aggressive type person and saying, "Hey, I've done this, this, and this. I think I deserve this," or "I'd like to talk to you about, a different position." It's that complacent optimist. When franchising, you have a partner. It's not really a financial partner other than the royalties, but they can help you grow. I mean,
Listen, I like that complacent optimism, right? Because on the flip side of that, the boss can come in and say, "Hey, we don't need you anymore."
right. Exactly. Yep. 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 Well, Cary, any last minute words here? What would be the best way for someone to get a hold of you to learn more about the Repham brands? Maybe just some general questions about, hey, I'm still a little undecided here. And again, education wise for our listening audience, you don't talk to somebody on Tuesday, tell them what color you want on Wednesday and pick it up on Thursday. This is a timely process. I mean, you're looking at 60, 90, 120 days. And of course, if it's a business that requires retail, you're looking at another 6 to 12 months before you actually get your doors open. But what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Well, outside of talking to my agent, Scotty Milas, our website is repmgroup.com. It's repmgroup.com. That would be a good way to get in there and see what brands we have and learn a little bit about what our company does and how we do it differently. For me, LinkedIn is the best way to do it. Just type in my name. I'm very, very present on there. You can shoot me a message or kick me an email. That's public as well. It's just Cary, Cary at repmgroup.com. So
great. Well, Cary, it's always great catching up, and I hope we'll be able to have you back shortly. And I look forward to sitting down at the bar with you again and some hot wings and beers. I mean,
we're a couple months away from that, so
yeah. A couple of nice. I guess your traveling season with all the conferences is coming up. So
I don't know if we want to tell everybody that I'm at 42 flights already this year. So I am a frequent flyer to the max right now. So
yeah, well, listen. Stay in touch. Thanks for having us. This is Scotty Milas, host of All Things Considered Franchising, powered by Scott Milas, franchisecoach.com. If anyone has any questions for me, go to my website, scottmilasfranchisecoach.com, allthingsconsideredfranchising.com, or email me, scott@scottmilasfranchisecoach.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. This is Scotty Milas signing off. Until the next time, all things considered franchising.